I love highlighting what is locally available, and I love highlighting the idiosyncrasies of a certain place. And I'm not interested in becoming a brand that could be indifferent to wherever you are. I want it to be shaped by what is in that specific community, as well as weaving in and incorporating those amazing people that I've met along the way.
The Yoga Connection with Zora Nanda is a deep dive into the world of yoga, exploring the rich history of tradition, methodology, and practices both ancient and modern. Follow along as yoga is explored through solo episodes to guest interviews to understand its vast reach around the world. Hello and welcome to the Yoga Connection. My name is Zora Nanda. Today is an exciting day because for the first time I have a team of folks and I am in Calgary, Alberta in a studio, in a sweet, wicked studio. And I'm here because I'm interviewing a particular person. Her name's Kaeleigh Doherty. She is the organizer of the Banff Yoga Festival. And I was connected to her through our mutual friend, Andrew, who's here with us today behind the scenes with his friend, Duan. And what's exciting is that we get wicked video footage and I get to share my podcast and I get to share what I love to do here at a more expansive level. So that's great. So Kaeleigh, how's it going?
So good. Feeling? I'm excited to be here and I'm excited for you.
Yeah, thank you. I guess we can just get right into it.
Yeah.
And what started your yoga journey, doing the things that you do and having the festival? What was it that inspired you to want to even get into practicing yoga or teaching?
I started yoga through an injury that I had as a former athlete. I played women's hockey in university and I injured my back. And so I was actually suggested to practice Pilates. And I went to a Pilates class and I appreciated it and I liked it. But I found that yoga was just a little more gentle on it and on my back and stretched me a little bit more. But I remember my first yoga class was a very, very slow. Must have been a half a class. And I just it was in Montreal and I left the class being that was a little easy. Did that do anything? And then that was kind of the beginning of my yoga journey. And then how I got really into it was actually kind of commercial. I worked for Lululemon. That back injury led to me being cut from the hockey team, and then that sort of led to a loss of an identity shift for me because I was I associated myself so closely with the sport that I played. So my job at Lululemon became it was called the community leader, and so my job essentially was to go and create relationships with yoga studios for Lululemon. And this was pre-public days. It was a privately owned company at the time. And so, I just went around the city. It was actually the greatest job ever. I just went around to different studios. And then I found one studio specifically that kind of hooked me. And that was the Jivamukti studio in Montreal.
Yeah, it's interesting how yoga can just weave right into your life almost unexpectedly, right? You're living this whole life and you have all these dreams and aspirations and suddenly something shifts that, say if it's an injury in your case, right? And then suddenly this whole practice that seemingly is innocent and simple and you just think it's going to be something that kind of is a physical therapy to some degree that then takes you on this whole journey, right? So that goes right into my next question perfectly,
Mhm.
right? Like
Mhm.
in the questions that I wrote down and sent to you, that
Yeah.
is there a specific school of yoga or like a teacher that you studied under?
Two that stand out to me from that time that made me curious. And I think the first one was Mark Darby. He's a Ashtanga practitioner and teacher. And he studied directly under Patabi Joyce. And he had a studio, and I went into it, and it was very intimidating, and the chanting, I didn't know much about it, but I just observed him, and he would just the way he moved and moved through the space through his space, like he just was very humble and kind, and yet had this presence. And him and his wife would practice next to each other in Mysore, and I started to try to do that, and I just observed them practicing next to each other, and it was just like it was acrobatic and just everything. It was so amazing to observe and be in the same room as. And then also, my teacher that I would consider my teacher, still to this day, even though I haven't actually practiced with her for years, is Jennifer Magandance. I was able to bring her to the festival uh, recently, but she was the Jivamukti teacher and owner of the studio, and her husband is a musician, and so they emphasize music, and so I think that's what really drew me to the practice was the incorporation of music. Like us, every playlist was always like specifically themed. The classes are very themed on based on a theme of the month. There's also other aspects of the practice that at the time I got into, like veganism and that non-harming aspect of the practice. But I definitely I got hooked to that practice, and also just that alternative way of learning through they emphasize adjustments, and so I got hooked. And they were playing Beatles and Otis Redding and ABBA in the class, and then also the practice was quite rigorous and challenging, and it was a great workout, which at the time I really craved after being an athlete. So I would travel, like I would take, it took me in like an hour to get to class, and even through the snowstorms, I would
Yeah.
make sure I got to class. And
And you're committed. You're like,
I
I
was,
have
I
to get there.
it was half. It was like I wanted to, like
Yeah.
I couldn't not have it. It was like my meditation and my drug.
And I think one of the hardest parts in teaching is catering or creating an awesome playlist. Like selecting the right music,
Yeah.
because you're taking people through a journey, right?
Yes.
The music is going to be so helpful in setting the tone of the practice and like how you build up from, especially like in the way that I teach, it's kind of like a bell curve, right? Like you're
Yes.
started
Exactly.
either laying on your back or you're seated and you're like coming up to your peak postures. And so to have the music in the space that just like helps people stay focused and really dial into what they're doing. And yeah, it's impressive. So,
Yeah, it's
like,
really an art, like because you can like the music can also really distract you.
yeah,
Yeah.
and through your journey of, finding these teachers and being inspired from them, has that led to any like traveling? Like, did that inspire you to, okay, I'm going to go to India or I'm going to go to like wherever?
I definitely my motivation to travel is definitely for fitness and trying out classes, and when I go somewhere, it's kind of one of the first things I do aside from finding the coffee. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Coffee's important.
yeah, so I always try and get to a fitness class, and I always or of some kind, but at first it was solely yoga that I would scope out, but now I've gotten into all different kinds of um, yogas, different workouts and that kind of thing. So yeah, I've definitely traveled everywhere I've gone. I would travel specifically to New York to go to yoga, and because Jivamukti
Nice.
head office HQ is there, well was there, and so yeah, I would definitely travel there. I went to LA specifically again for yoga, and then yeah, and Bali. I everywhere I've gone, Hong Kong. Yeah, I just would find as soon as I got there, it would be the first place I'd first thing I do is find the studios and the spaces that were offering classes and check it out.
Yeah. And if you were to compare, like, say, if you do travel that's not yoga related, would you feel that there's like a difference in just how it feels going to those places? 'Cause I know for myself, like, if I ever travel somewhere that isn't yoga related and I'm just kind of doing the touristy thing, that it's a way different feeling than if I'm like intentionally, okay, I'm going to this place and I'm going to go to yoga studios, or if I'm like specifically there for yoga, that it just, the world, it seems, opens up in a different way.
Yeah, and well, now that you say that, like, I actually have never gone anywhere and not gone to find a fitness or yoga class. Like, it's never that's never happened.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think the reason I sometimes even the justification of my travels was to find, like, the yoga or tap into the yoga community and maybe even see some spaces. And,
Yeah.
I think that each place, like, for example, we have a festival in Okanagan, and the community in Banff versus Okanagan, it's as deep, but it's so unique and different in the offerings. So there's still such a strong, obviously, yoga and wellness community there, but it exists differently, very different way, with different strengths and different opportunities. In dependent on where. I think it also has to do with, like, where they geographically are too. Like, I think the
Mhm.
landscape really plays into that, and like geography really plays into, like, how people exist in a certain area. So maybe what they gravitate towards, like, for example, Okanagan has a warmer climate and is closer to water. So, there's the practices are a little different there. Whereas in Banff, it's like very, like, you've got the mountains. So obviously people are really, um, they're climbing, they're hiking. And so it's very, the tapas there is very strong.
And that's interesting to think about, because I don't think I've really thought of it that way. That your environment is going to play a big part in how people are going to practice. A lot of my travels, I've gone mainly to like Thailand or India or Central or South America, and so when you're in tropical places where it's like so hot and humid, um, yeah, I just find that like there's an intensity to it, but depending on where you're going, it's like there's a slowness to it. Where I've traveled a lot around United States too, and I've had the opportunity to practice in places like Boulder, Colorado,
Oh,
or
cool.
Pittsburgh, or Portland. Um, and yeah, to see how like the people themselves shape the container for the practice, and it's really beautiful to see, and to see how, like, even though yoga is such an umbrella term, that it is so unique as well, and that you can bring an essence into it, and cater or like create an experience for people in a unique way.
Hmm.
um and so then, looking at your life, like personally, how does yoga show up in your life? If that's like, if it is on the mat, or if it's like, going into your life and, just a day to day experience.
Yeah, good question. Um, well, my yoga practice itself definitely fluctuates. Like, for example, right now it's more moved. Like, actually, I'm going to a class called Berries, which you you some yogis might cringe at that, but it's a sprint workout with weights. And so for me, I get into a yogic state when I'm sprinting.
Mm.
Um, so I kind of just I really just listen to my body and what I feel like doing. Like, I definitely was looking for like, to sprint. I was trying to find a track so I could just exert energy. And a friend of mine who actually his name is Sachin. He'll be teaching at the festival. He told me that my Ayurvedic state is kapha. So when I'm in a place of, like, for example, right now it's go time, right? So I'm working like 10 to 12 to maybe even more hours a day, and and I can get in, like, for me, I can just focus in, and that everything else will fall away, which is great, but also has its polarity. So I find I have to, in order to find balance in that specific time, getting out and just like exerting energy is really helpful for me to like find a place of balance. Whereas, and then also like a yin or a restorative right now is key for me to find, to slow down the mind. And also sometimes when that happens, I also get these epiphanies of solving a problem or something. So that's really effective for me right at this moment, but it's constantly evolving and changing. Earlier, I was really craving Ashtanga. So I was doing Ashtanga at home, and and it varies. And I'm always like trying to go to classes, like different classes, and try new things, and humbling myself that way.
Yeah.
But in terms of off the mat, I find that like this is, I'm sure you can sort of, this might resonate with you, but just finding yoga in the moments, smaller moments of that might not occur to most people as yoga, like my walk with my dog, my coffee in the morning, like finding those little moments of just like synchronicity.
Yeah, synchronicity is a great word, right? Because it's really going to play into, how we're weaving the moment of like expression, right? So like you going to this like sprinting class and, taking all this energy that is part of like kapha, part of like the earthiness of your being, where it needs that like jump start into motion and getting things going, especially knowing that you have such a big task ahead of you, where you don't want this like slowing down to creep in to start to influence like, oh, I don't need to do that right now, I can, you want to stay in go mode.
Yeah.
And then how that then plays into your daily life of, okay, my focus in on just being in the moment of like enjoying my coffee, enjoying my walk with my dog, like enjoying conversations, and how that then like opens yourself up to these synchronicities of even moments like this, right? Like getting the opportunity to have a conversation and be on a podcast and have a whole new experience. And then like that word yoga and, the sense of like unifying, like what are you unifying yourself with, right? You're unifying yourself with that synchronicity. And it doesn't have to be so like overtly magical. It can
Exactly.
be in the simple moment of I went and ran on this track, then I walked my dog, and then I'm in the go mode of like now I have to take on these responsibilities and work. And suddenly, like you're saying, like 10 to 12 hours goes by and you're like, man, I just did all that. Now it's time to rest. And,
Yeah.
having that balance of, okay, yeah, I have like this need for exertion, but then I have also this like necessary
Need to
moment of like yin and chill
Yes.
out and
Yes.
get back into my body and let that moment of settling in come at an appropriate time.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Exactly.
I'm like the opposite. Like my constitution is like pitta vata, right? So my mind and everything is on go mode all the time, and then I have to bring things in to like really ground myself and to slow myself down. But then I find that like it really influences me to be really lazy, and
Oh
I'm
yeah.
like, I'm like, yeah, I like Sundays are my lazy day.
But that's
Yeah,
that's not lazy. That's
yeah,
that's you finding like your balance as well. Like
yeah,
I think
totally.
the I can, that resonates with me too, because I find like when I told you one of the first classes I attended was like this hatha class that was really relaxing, and it was very much I didn't like to relax, and I still struggle with it. Relaxing, like I have guilt around it.
Mm.
So I think that's the killer, is the guilt and the shame that you feel when you relax versus just owning it. And I think for me, like you said, I'm go time, so I really tap into that. However, I'm often go time, so getting to yin and restorative, it really is a work, but it's a different work. Yeah.
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 Yeah, and it's it's leading into this question I had about, are there any particular yoga philosophies that you incorporate? And we brought up like tapas
Mm,
and this idea of like committing yourself to something, right? And yoga is a really tough commitment, right? Because it's exposing so much when you
yeah.
first go into it, like you're saying, you're in this hatha class and you're like, oh, I don't think this is for me. It's exposing something and then going into ashtanga and then like just cracking you open being like, okay, this is now part of my life and I want to commit to it. Using that state of mind, do you find that especially with this yoga festival, like what kind of challenges come up
Mm.
to either like try to like prevent you from like really dialing in or yeah, like any kind of like roadblocks, so to speak.
Yeah, good question. So for that, I think with the Banff Festival specifically, because Banff is a federal municipality, meaning it's governed by two governing bodies, the local municipality and then also the federal Parks Canada. And so there's a lot of operations and policy and process that has to be followed, and and it's also Banff, so it's like it's never busy. It doesn't essentially need my business. So finding a space in Banff was really really challenging and continues to be a challenge, and then also like just making the festival operate easily. Like we can't take more than 12 people into nature at a time. We can't. There's the shuttles can only be specific drop-offs in the wilderness, and there has to be permits for that, and so there's a lot of little details that need to be understood and followed through on in order for it to operate legally, and so those things obviously are just make it a little bit more add a layer of complication to operating a festival in general. But then also finding a space is definitely challenging. But that was recently solved with our latest venue, which is Norquay Ski Lodge, which operates typically in the summer as a wedding venue. So it's very very beautiful. But we have a 3-year agreement, and that was really a huge win for us, and will be a game changer.
Nice.
But then the other thing that I think is a challenge for most events that operate through ticket sales is that the financials behind it, that there's a lot of risk that the event organizer undertakes in order for the festival to happen. And so when in order for the festival to break even, we depend on ticket sales, and not as much. I mean, sponsorships are great and everything, but we're just getting started again. So, that's not as much of a piece of the pie this year. But so yeah, we're kind of a self-funded festival. So there's a lot of, what is the saying? Counting your chickens before they hatch.
Yeah.
So there's that, and that's always a little bit stressful and unsettling. So, there's a lot of pressure around what we do from a marketing perspective to, just make it known that we exist, and but then it's Banff at the same time, so that everything in Banff, it's you can't miss. It's a beautiful place. Like
Yeah.
getting people there, regardless, is going to be an amazing experience. But then the easy part is just highlighting the people that are already there doing what they're doing. And that's what makes it flow, and that's what makes it successful. Mm.
Amazing. Yeah, I can only imagine like, the kind of hoops you have to jump through, and the authorities you have to appease to, right?
Yeah,
Because like you're saying, it's a national park, right?
yeah,
So, and you have a reputation that you're building too, right? You want this thing
yeah,
to be successful, and
totally.
just hearing that your first step of like getting this 3-year contract is a huge win, right?
A huge one, yeah.
And then you not only have to prove it to yourself, then you have to prove it to the province. You have to prove it to the authorities, right? That
Yeah,
like, you know, not only are they going to want to welcome you back, they're going to be on your side for it,
Exactly.
right? And,
Yeah.
and then so like the teachers that you bring in and, like the team that you have to really showcase that there's a level of professionalism and this is something that's viable for long term, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think I like it's also yoga. Like we want to be creating collaborative, positive relationships within the town, and we want the festival to be a huge win for the businesses there. So, in my conversations that I often have with the different stakeholders in Banff, I'm really trying to show them that, I mean, before when we started, like in 2015, wellness wasn't on the map in terms of a form of travel or why people travel. But I think since the pandemic, it's become a whole industry, and it's a whole now funded, acknowledged industry. Wellness travel, wellness tourism is the whole thing now. So it's probably going to be helpful for us. But at the same time, when things become more established, like we did have a less expensive venue previously, and it was kind of a rethinking a venue that was operated as a hockey arena. So it was less expensive for us at that time. But now it's established, and so we're competing with our own dates for our original venue. And then so just in terms of like create, I think yoga is many things, but it's also the how we are existing in our environment. And so I really want the festival to be a collaborative, positive partner for Parks Canada, for the town, for the local business owners, for the locals. So I've tried to sort of address this like dichotomy between the tourist and the local in Banff. And so bringing the locals as the feature lineup is really how I envision the festival operating in its beginning days. And so that's kind of how I've it's very locally focused first and based on like geography too, like the landscape. So bringing people specifically into the landscape and catering the programming to that versus, so like, in Banff, we do a mountain meditation. In Kelowna, we do a vineyard meditation or a lakeside meditation. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, to me, yoga has always been this direct connection to something bigger than myself. And so, providing a space and providing a whole like weekend for people to dive into something that on the surface, they're like, yeah, it's going to this yoga festival, but then they come out of it with stories. They come out of it with connections and, like the type of people that you're meeting and the opportunities that you're going to have for getting in touch with yourself. Right. I think like to me, like that's always like the MO, right?
totally.
And so to be in a position like to provide that, that's a big responsibility, right? And to me, it feels great to come to a place like that, be in the majesty and the beauty of Banff and the mountains and the outdoors, and then to have this like beautiful venue to work out of and to play in. I think is like kind of like speaks to the magic of what yoga is. And, a big part of that are the teachers, right? Like the people that you like handpick to come out.
Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you can like, just from the top of your head, who are like some of the teachers that,
Oh my gosh, I want to go through each of them and say why I love them all so much.
yeah.
Yeah. And just to add to what you're saying, like, I think about the festival as doing sort of three essential things, and it's connecting people to nature, connecting people to similar people to themselves, to their community, and connecting people to themselves. So those are kind of the three ways that I look at what the festival actually does. And we do that connection happens through facilitating transformational and immersive experiences for them in nature or with amazing teachers who have been specifically curated. And then answering your question with regards to teachers, I mean, I have to say Andrew Measley because he's right here, but also I would have anyways. I mean, people like him, and teachers like him. I think I really love to celebrate. Maybe it's my shtick, but uh, celebrating people who don't necessarily celebrate themselves. I really love finding teachers that do that because they're just purists and they're so strong in what they do because they're walking the talk. And so when I find a teacher like that, which usually isn't via Instagram, it actually never is. And it's never through reaching out to see if to ask if you can teach. Never. We have a process for that and we're still navigating that, but usually the way, if anyone's listening out there that wants to teach at the festival, the best way is like to show up as a volunteer or to attend the festival or to get involved some way versus applying to teach. It's very seldom that we'll do that unless it's like very niche or specific voids in the programming that we're trying to fill, but it's never from a yoga flow standpoint. The teachers, so back to the teachers that we select are usually through word of mouth. So I heard about Andrew through Reno Wentz initially, and then we spoke, and then I saw this just voiceover that Andrew did, and I still watch it to this day. Like sometimes I just have it on repeat, like as I work, and we're not going to use it, but you're going to redo it, right? You have? Okay. Oh yeah, that one. There's more though, right? Okay. And just, I think also my conversations with Andrew, like outside of work, festival talk are oftentimes yoga too. And just, I think he's just a vessel and a transcendental light for people. So I always love to involve him as much as I can. And, and I think the thing that I think Andrew brings specifically is like, hey, you can come to this festival and practice yoga, but there's more to yoga. And I think that that's what Andrew really fills in, because Banff in general, Banff teachers have a very strong physical practice. A lot of the teachers, have you noticed that? And you do too, but you speak to the mind stuff a little bit more and the spirituality part of it I think you bridge that for a lot of people. And I think that's what I really love that Andrew brings to the festival content. Some of the locals, like I also have I gravitate towards older teachers just because, especially ones that, if they're in their like 50s, 60s, 70s, and they're still practicing, like that's just a testament to the practice and the consistency and what that brings. And so I really love bringing like master teachers, I would consider them. Like Misty Maisonette is one that I think of. She's recently gotten into CrossFit, which is like,
I practice I do CrossFit too.
Okay. It's so cool. And like, she's also a sort of like a green cuisine chef, and she's doing elixirs and opening the festival. And so she's like a third generation, I think, third generation Banffite, and she's just also a Chinese medicine doctor. And so she's an exceptional person. Again, not promoting herself. She is, but in a very humble way. And then the two that I can't not mention is, I always talk about them the same because I think when I really found yoga in Banff specifically, they were kind of the two teachers that I would go to, and it's Erin Evans, very strong physical practice and an amazing teacher, and just the cues and the cues, not just the physical cues, but the cues of the other stuff are very subtle and to the point, but strong. And then Lydia, what I really love about her, Lydia Zamorano, is that she is like in third series in the Ashtanga. Like she's very advanced. She can
Yeah,
do
that's
anything.
intense. Yeah.
Yeah. But the way that she approaches it, you can tell she's like an artist. Like she's very artistic in the practice, even though, she can do physically anything. And then the way that she explains it is just so gentle and inviting. And so I really find she's a great person to bring in. Yeah. And then, there's some newer teachers that I'm excited to bring in, like not newer. By newer, I mean like 5 years in or something. But Arifa Lalani, she's an amazing teacher and just really soft and gentle and leans into the softness, I think, of yoga, and humble too. Yeah, so humble. And Mel Emlyn, she's also an upcoming teacher. She's also an osteo, so she just has that like whole knowledge that I really appreciate, and she's moving into the meditation side of things. And then Jess Young is a local from Banff, and I've been kind of witnessed her journey from what she previously did to this now, and it's such a joy to witness, because she's such an incredible teacher, and she's hosting yin teacher trainings, and she's an amazing yin teacher, also very grounding as when she teaches. So really excited about her. I don't want to miss anyone. I literally would go through the entire, I kind of want to, if I don't know if that's how much time I have, but and just I'm actually bringing in my aunt Kathy.
Nice.
She's been leading drum circles in Calgary for like decades. But that's not what she'll be doing. She's leading a mountain meditation, and she's just a constant light. So I'm excited for her to sort of highlight her mentality. She's also like, she's my aunt. So she's an older lady, and she's not Auntie Kathy, you're not an old lady. You're a young spirit. And so she's such a positive light. So I'm excited to share her teachings with everyone. And then of course, I'm bringing in 2 Indigenous wellness leaders. One specifically, Ishta Devi, and I just really excited about her because I just have always wanted to like be a platform for her. I think she's got so much to offer, and she really brings in this like piece of trauma and holds like that darkness really well, like we were talking about. Like
Yeah.
I think she might even be a Scorpio, I think, but she
Perfect.
yeah, she's the best.
Yeah.
And so she's also been working hard on, she's a clinical counselor and hypnotherapist. So she'll bring and an incredible yoga practitioner herself. So she brings an amazing knowledge to the table, and very unique offering. Like she's coming at yoga and wellness from a different angle, I think, than what we have in Banff. And then Charlene Smoke, who actually I heard about through Ishta, but I just followed her on Instagram randomly. And then as she was sharing, this is one of the ones where I did find on Instagram, but not because she has tons of followers. She has like 400 followers. It's because she would share she'd bring in the Indigenous teachings into her classroom, and she's a teacher. So she's actually not coming from a yoga angle at all. She's just kind of brought in the Indigenous teachings that have resonated with her and that she's discovered and understood, and bringing it in a way that's so beautiful. And so I'm really excited for her offerings. She's going to be helping with the opening, land acknowledgement, and then also doing a mountain meditation, but a water song as well. So I'm so excited for that one. Oh yeah, music. Yeah. So we have.
Yeah, that's going to be my next thing.
Yeah. Music is an area that I think I really like. I'd really want to develop more. It's a passion of mine, as you can tell. It's how I sort of got hooked to the yoga style that I'm into. But currently we have a DJ, and he's just a longtime supporter. He also has his own festival called Fireside Festival, and just constantly doing lots of different music things. But he's a DJ. His name is Aaron De Silva. And he also founded a company called Micrology, and they'll be, they're kind of hosting the music at the festival. So he'll be DJing several different sessions with teachers like Kristen Jostad, the owner of Yoga Passage, and and multiple others. I think he's with you, Andrew. I think someone is. Can't. I need a computer in front of me to know. Um, and then there's yeah, Windmills. Okay, Windmills is incredible. He's not only a great musician like on his own, he has a Spotify, you can check out Windmills. He also does like looping and sort of ethereal sounds. So he'll be host like it's like static and just different sounds to sort of get you into that like state. And then also he'll be doing like the singer-songwriter thing as well. Um,
So like improvisational,
yes.
kind of like meditative.
Yeah, I mean, like improvisational, I'm sure he's practiced and stuff, but yeah,
Yeah.
essentially, yeah, like
Yeah.
looping and
I think your approach in how you're choosing the teachers is really great,
thanks.
right? Because like you're not looking um for these people who are like highly prestigious, and that's you're wanting to um bring people in who have a wisdom, and even though they're kind of in like the background of doing things, I think it's so much more potent in that.
Hmm.
But then it also like inevitably amplifies them in their platform, and like having the space where you can bring people in who locally are really influential, and um, from there to show that there's people just right around us who are doing amazing things,
Yeah.
who can come in and share their teachings, and whether or not it's yoga related or not, like with one of the indigenous women that you're bringing in, right? That like she's an educator, right?
Yeah.
So and how she weaves her indigenous teachings as an educator is really special. And so having this kind of like yoga festival as a bridge of sorts, right? So it's
People
like,
say that to me, and I'm like, that is who I am. I'm like a bridge.
yeah,
And also the festival, that's what I see it as, a bridge to connecting people. And it's always so satisfying to see like when teachers collaborate that met at the festival, or like just seeing the ripple effect of the festival itself is also so amazing to it's a win. Like I almost need to find a way to like track it tangibly, because it's such a huge it's the major impact of the festival, but it is harder to measure.
yeah,
I did want to just mention one more musician, because
yeah.
his name's Christopher Bazinet. I wasn't sure on how to pronounce his last name, but so Christopher Bazinet, I was introduced to via Arifa Lalani, and he plays the handpan. So it's like it's actually, I thought it was an ancient instrument. It's actually relatively new, and it just has like a very echoey but uplifting sound. It's beautiful.
Yeah, handpans are amazing.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. So he's the other musician, and yeah, and then we I think that's an area that I really want to grow. In the past, we've brought a DJ from LA and a DJ from Montreal, and I always try and like have that as a little bit of an extra offering to really highlight the teachers even more. Garth Stevenson's another artist that so amazing, plays the cello and nature, and also does some looping, is collaborated with Andrew. And one of the things that sticks with me, in one of his stories, he was brought to the Arctic with a group of scientists, and he like mimicked the sounds of the whales with his cello, and just
Wow.
amazing stories of being in nature with music. So it's just so fitting.
Yeah.
So yeah, we love bringing him in, and then yeah, music is something I really want to build out for the festival, because it's such it's a celebration. So it wouldn't be a celebration without music.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So we're about a month away. At this point, like what's the hardest part, like leading up to the festival? Like, if it's the last bits of organization, or the thing that sticks out in your mind that you're like, okay, this is the last like hurdle, or the last thing that I have to really focus in on.
Yeah, I think like with the planning, you start super high level. So when you start high level, like there's obviously some you can assume or predict some of the obstacles that might come in the way of the big idea that you're trying to execute, but sometimes you can't. So oftentimes, having done it now multiple years, some of those hurdles you can predict, but then now since we're starting again, essentially since we operated in 2022, but we're essentially operating the first time since the pandemic outside of our rescheduled festival. So there's the town and stuff has changed a little. So, there's some of that we're dealing with, but usually the last month is really about making sure that those high level ideas, you confine it down to a list, literally a to-do list, a shopping list, and it becomes a production schedule time, like by the minute, that we follow through the festival to ensure all of the different moving parts happen. So the way that I do that is through Post-its, to be honest. I just make a huge Post-it wall, and then each color is different operations and different work streams. And I start to sort of build a to-do list and a production schedule from that. That looks like purchasing dowels for Lydia's dowel class, to making sure the shuttle timing is on point for the mountain meditations. And there's just lots of little detail stuff that in the last month, that's where we really hone in. Sometimes 1 month is tight, but we did have a less of a time turnaround. The last month is kind of what we're working with. And I have help. So really great help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that makes sense because like you want to have a good team
Oh
to
yeah.
be able to like be successful in these things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so that like when the people show up, they just go right through the flow of things.
Exactly.
Right? And they
That's
have
what you
the
want.
experiences that they have, and all the music, all the yoga, the food, like everything's on point because on the back end, everything's taken care of.
Totally.
And you have the team that's in communication with each other to make sure everything's going smoothly.
Totally.
And yeah, it's like the unforeseen hand that's kind of influencing the flow of it.
Mhm.
And you don't really want people to be taken out of their experience, right? Like you
Mhm.
want people to show up and, have this kind of
Seamless.
transformative experience, like you're saying, so that they want to come back the next year.
Yeah.
And so that it can grow in that sense.
Exactly.
And
Yeah, I think like a lot of it is detail focused, but at the same time, it's so important for me to stay high level thinking because then it focuses more on the like flow of the experience for the participants because that's what's going to make it grow. So, I have to be gentle with myself in these times because this is at a time where not every email on my end can get answered realistically. And so having that help to really make sure that the details are on point. I can be in the details and I actually like to, but it's important that I step away from the details and go higher level so that experience is super in flow, like you're saying. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, because I just imagine that, just the responsibility of holding this, right? Like this whole container of this idea, right? It starts with an idea.
Yeah.
Right? If you were to go back like 5 years ago or 6 years ago when you're dreaming of this idea and it's so ethereal, and then once it becomes a real thing and you're holding a space for, hundreds, thousands of people, and what that responsibility means.
Yeah.
And so like you as a person, like I would imagine, have gone through a transformation yourself, right? If you were to look back at like who you were,
Oh my gosh, yes.
like 10 years ago to who you are now, and how that festival has facilitated that it's not just like you as the person with the idea, it's now the manifestation of it and the team and everyone involved. And then like how you have to encourage yourself to be like, hey, I have to be this person, not only for myself, but then for the people around me.
Yeah. Yes. And it's funny that you say that because this particular year, I mean, I've essentially had like a 5-year hiatus. So, having that like sometimes I look at like like pre-pandemic, we had like 1,200 people signed up. This year it's going to be like around, I think, 300. That'll be the second smallest year. But at the same time, when I go back and I look at the operations of, because I keep everything. So I look at the year 2019 and I look at that and I'm like, who was she? Like, who was this person that put this festival on? I don't know how I did it sometimes, and then sometimes I do. But it definitely was a hustle, and I think there was a fire in me that is still there for sure, but it's an educated fire now. It's like informed. So, but now, if that person, and this is funny because a shaman said this to me, like sometimes certain parts of you need to die in order to execute on something or get through something. And then sometimes those parts of you are reborn, and also sometimes a new version of yourself needs to be born. And so I look at that era of that 2015 to 2019 of the festivals where it just was growing exponentially. And I just think that person came to me to help me get it off the ground. And I have so much gratitude for her.
Yeah, I think like they're almost like angels in disguise, right? Like they just like there's these individuals that'll come in and plant seeds, and yeah, and that's an amazing blessing because not everybody is going to go through that, right? And so yeah, it's such a powerful testament to not only like who you were in the past, who you are now, but then like what you're growing into in the future, right? Because
Mhm.
like maybe you don't see it, maybe you don't see the full scope, right? And
Mhm.
you have this humility to be like, hey, I'm going to start kind of small, I'm going to scale down, but then there's something in that that's preparing you for the next phase. And so I think maybe we're kind of at the point of possibly wrapping up. So if you were to kind of look at now the next like maybe 5 years, or like what kind of dreams or aspirations you have going forward for the future of this festival, and like in yourself and your own growth, and
Yeah.
manifesting this container.
Yeah. I definitely I want to grow it and I want to go into more places. And I think the festival does a really great job of highlighting what exists locally. And you mentioned that like what's in your backyard, and I think about like this saying that it's like an ancient alchemist saying, is that um, all that ails you is in your own backyard. So I think of that, and I love highlighting what is locally available, and I love highlighting the idiosyncrasies of a certain place. And I'm not interested in becoming a brand that could be indifferent to wherever you are. I want it to be shaped by what is in that specific community, as well as weaving in and incorporating those amazing people that I've met along the way. So I want to grow this to more communities and to more destinations, and really highlighting the sort of the wellness community and destinations. I I want to get Okanagan back on its feet again, and I look forward to growing another Western destination, hopefully, and an Eastern Canada one. And then, before the pandemic hit, I was looking at Europe, and I would love to do a one European destination. I think that would be so fun. And then that's probably good for Mount festivals in one year.
Yeah.
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 What? Yeah, Italy. Yeah,
Oh my
Italy,
God, Italy.
Lisbon.
Yeah, that'd be
Even
amazing.
London would be interesting, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it feels daunting to get in there, but I bet there is like some. Yeah. 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 So it's
Yeah, the
probably
sky's the
already
limit,
happening.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then also recognizing like handle what you can, you
Yes.
know?
Yeah. That's hard for me. I'm
Yeah.
very ambitious. So
Yeah, me too.
to chill.
Like my mind will like dream up the biggest thing, and I'm like, okay, that's step 25. Like I have to come back to
That's
step
great.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 10,
See, that's great because I'm like, I get this big vision. I'm like, this is happening.
Yeah. Oh man. Um, Amazing. Well, thank you so much
Thank you so
for
much.
sitting down with me and chatting. Maybe just explain where people can find you.
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah. So people can find Well in Banff. It's a rebranded version of the Banff Yoga Festival. Um, and we renamed it Well in Banff to sort of highlight what I just talked about, wellness. I think it just, if we're seeking to get more people into yoga and wellness, I think having a broader term might be helpful. A lot of people I noticed shied away from the term yoga, thinking they didn't practice yoga. So I really hesitated to shift that name, but we're still yoga centered. It's just Well in Banff. So wellinbanff.com. And then also on our Instagram, we haven't shifted that over, but we do have a Well in Banff Instagram, and as well a Banff Yoga Festival Instagram, which is where you can find the festival information. But on our website, it's also a great source. And you can always, we have a really great system right now. If you have any questions, you can always email info@Banff Yoga Festival, and you'll actually get an automated email with the option to set up a call with us, just like a 15-minute for any questions or clarity on what the weekend is all about. But yeah, that's it.
Perfect.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'll have all the links in the description
Oh,
as well.
okay, thanks.
So thank you all for listening. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Enjoy.
Namaste.
Namaste.